popular demand, I purchased every SPX suspension setup on the market for the 450 class to determine which truly deserves your hard-earned cash. I'll be ranking them based on performance tiers to find out the good, the bad, and the ugly. By the end of the video, you'll find out what suspension setup suits you. We tested these at TresRanchos Mx Park. I picked this track for its technical sections along with high speed and rough bumps. Now, let's find out who reigns supreme. We're gonna be on the Beta 450, and for this one, we're gonna have to rate this D tier. And unfortunately, there's a lot of reasons why. First, I noticed the back end kicks a ton. When I try to get a little more aggressive on the throttle, I just noticed that the rear end loves to slide out. It was hard to stay planted, and especially in these long ruts, that is a huge L. The Beta has to be one of the torquiest bikes out of all of them. I would definitely adjust the gearing. I felt like it wasn't as nimble as the rest of the bikes. I would actually be interested in adjusting the fork offset, which gives the bike a little bit more of a turn. It is not great on the super hard impacts. You actually just have to hop around to make this bike work. For me, I thought the front end was way too stiff. It literally felt like two steel rods on this. Overall, I was pretty upset with Beta 450, but it's got to go with the D tier. And for this one, we're on the Gas 450, and this deserves a B tier. Much different from the Beta 450. You could be way more aggressive without the back end kicking. I felt like it was much more stable in the corners. I was able to actually push rather than kind of be scared that the bike was gonna go each way. I really like the fork oil. I feel like they hit it right on the money with the front and the rear. It absorbed a lot of the higher impacts. I just felt like it held up whenever you were a little more aggressive than normal. Now, if you did blow through the stroke, meaning you bottom out when you hit too hard of a bump, or maybe you hit a hole, that's when I realized that it wasn't the greatest. I noticed the back end tend to kick when that happened, or I would be able to bounce up a significant amount. It was very comfy. I really enjoyed this, and I think this is a solid setup for the Gas 450. For number 3, we got the Honda 450, and this one gets an A tier score. I was the most comfortable by far on this one. I actually loved this bike so much, but it had such a unique characteristic that I probably haven't found in any other suspension. With this bike, the suspension actually has a skill level, which is insane. When I first started out on the bike, I was going through the sections kind of slow, just getting my feel. It was horrendous. It was bouncy. It was kicking me everywhere every time I was going slow. And I was like, oh man, this is going to be a terrible rating bike. But as I picked up speed, my goodness, the bike just handled amazing. It felt like it was A-kit suspension. The harder I threw into whatever rut, the bumps, anything like that, it responded better. I ended up just getting so comfortable, and I felt like I could just throw the bike everywhere. I mean, it was insane. I was hitting sections faster than I ever have, and I was able to wheelie through things, and I would overjump and it would just absorb beautifully. I would love to give this an S tier, but I have to drop it down because it's so terrible if you're not going really fast. I've never ridden suspension where there's an actual skill level for the way it handles. I would love for you guys to check it out, and this deserves an A tier. And for number 4, we're going with the Husky 450, and that deserves our first S tier. For me, this was hands down an S tier setup, and it's actually quite funny because the 250 had a complete opposite rating. Now, what I really enjoyed about this bike is I love the 250. I love the way the 250 feels. I felt like this was a 250 with a 450 engine. The characteristics were amazing. It was nimble. It was great on hard impacts, which was probably my favorite. I was able to kind of throw it into the rut, throw it into holes, and I wasn't guessing on where it was going. I felt very comfortable on it. Now, a trick that I like to use with suspension is I like to see how it feels throughout my hand. With the controller, it rumbles whenever you bottom out, stuff like that, or hard impacts. For me, when I was riding this, it almost felt like my controller didn't have the setting and I turned it off. I mean, it just felt like the bike was responding so well. Honestly, it kind of shocked me with the Husky 450. Overall, this is a 10 out of 10 setup for my riding style and what I like. This is an S tier. And for number 5, we're going with the KX 450. And unfortunately, this is a straight up D for donkey dick. This one did not handle on any of the bumps. I'm gonna be completely honest. This was just not great. It struggled in holes and hard impacts, which obviously is more of the suspension, but even in the small bumps and kind of medium speed bumps, it just wasn't great. It felt really stiff. I felt a lot of feedback in my hands. The one thing that keeps this from an F tier is that it's very nimble. I'm able to kind of flick the bike around, and that's something that I really did enjoy. Also, the gearing was excellent. I felt like third gear stretched perfect for this track, and it was just great overall. I felt like it would carry you perfectly over the jumps, but it did not rev out. But besides that, those are the only two small things keeping that from an F. I would not recommend this setup. And for number 6, we're going with the KTM 450, and this deserves a B tier setup. Now with the KTM, it actually struggled in the rough sections. When the track got rough, it was not handling the hard impacts or the holes great. It was bouncing me, it was kicking me. Now, when I got to the KTM, I had to reset the track. It was just getting so rough that it was not even realistic to what everyone would be riding. So when I reset the track and it was smooth, I mean, this thing barked. It was low and medium speed, it was great. Felt like I could overjump stuff. It just felt really comfortable. I was able to flick the bike around, it was very nimble. I only noticed this when the track was fresh. You know, when you start getting into the bumps and you start getting into the longer motos, I think this is where you're gonna struggle on the KTM. So overall, it's gonna be a B score. At number 7, we're going with the Triumph 450, and that is gonna be a B tier score. This one, I was pleasantly surprised. The one huge plus, I mean, my goodness, this thing felt like a 125. I felt like I could flick this thing anywhere. I was able to just navigate perfectly. I mean, it was just amazing when it came to that. It actually held up very good. The small and medium speed bumps, man, it held up great. I was able to kind of weave inside of ruts. I was able to overjump things. But the one thing is, once I blew through the whole suspension or I hit more of a hard impact, it was not forgiving. It would kick. It actually a lot of times would just pogo stick you up. So if I overjump something, I would just pop over like 2 or 3 bumps and be off the track. So that is definitely what dropped me from S to A tier to B tier. But if I had to rate it within the Bs, I think this would be a B plus. Again, this really surprised me. I didn't think it would be this good, but I actually kind of fell in love with the Triumph. At number 8, we have the YZ450, and this one deserves an S tier setup. My goodness, I can't even describe how good this is. I mean, I've ridden hundreds of setups, as you see. I do videos on all of these. I ride personally so much. I've spent so much hours on this game. This was probably the best 450 setup outdoors that I've ever felt. Now, with this one, you actually get 2 setups. You get like a version 3.1, another version 3.6, I believe. The 3.6 or the last version, incredible. I mean, every single bump that I hit, this thing absorbed, but it was best on the fast sections. So if you're a quick rider, you're really gonna enjoy this setup because it really holds up, and I feel like I was able to skim everything. It was extremely forgiving. I would overjump things extra just to test it out, and it just absorbed it like no other. Also with the YZ450, the thing is nimble. You're able to flick it around. Not as good as the Triumph, but I would say probably a notch below. I felt like there was no repercussions on this bike, and it was based on just how hard I wanted to push and if I had the reflexes to just stay up. And I think the big thing with SPX and what they do well is the meta bikes. I feel like they have their team of riders. They have enough data when it comes to like the TM250 when that was the meta. The YZ450, everyone's running that on the pro scene. They just make such good setups for the meta classes. If I can rank it higher than S tier, I would. I mean, it was amazing and I loved it. For number 9, we're on that Suzuki 450, and this deserves a C tier score. C plus, if I'm being honest. It was just average everywhere with some disadvantages. You know, I felt like with this bike, small, medium speed bumps, it did well. Wasn't great, wasn't the best. When you did the sudden impacts, you noticed that it wasn't as good as the other bikes. Now, it wasn't terrible by any means. it was just average if I had to do all of them. The one thing as well that I did not like is that the bike felt very slippery. I don't know if it was because the suspension wasn't sitting correctly, but I felt like the rear end would kick a lot and I felt like the front end is going to wash away. I just felt like I didn't have enough grip on this bike. I was definitely cautious when riding this rather than the other bikes. I was just able to just have fun. So this one just has to get a C tier, and it was just average. And at number 10, we have the Fantic 450, and this one deserves an F tier. Wow, this surprised me a ton. We all know that the Yamaha and the Fantic are the meta. I see them all the time. A lot of people are riding that. So I expected the Fantic 450 to have a crazy good setup. SPX missed the mark on this one. I felt like I discovered holes on the track that I didn't know existed. The thing was terrible in fast sections, with one of the worst kicking bikes I've ever felt. If you just hit a hole with this, you're done. I just felt like I felt everything as well through my hands on the controller, but also just visually. If I hit a hole, I'm kicking. If I'm doing a hard impact, the rear end's kicking out. If I'm doing a slow impact as well and the bike compresses, it's gonna bounce me up. I just have to be completely honest. This was dog. So for the Fantic 450, I'd say go another way. Now, for the final one, last but not least, we have the TM 450, and this one deserves a B tier. You know, this was surprisingly decent. I mean, I'm gonna keep this one short and sweet. It was good all around. It did nothing amazing, and it didn't wow me on everything, but it really got the job done. It wasn't flashy, but it was consistent. If you ever ride a TM 250, TMs in general in this game have such a weird feeling. They have a feeling that's not similar to the other bikes. It almost feels like the TM teeter-totters at times, and it's almost top heavy. So I feel like when I got into ruts or I hit a kicker, I feel like I'm in slow motion as I'm watching the bike lean as I'm trying to correct it. It just feels very top heavy, and you have to be the type of person that really likes the feeling of a TM. If you love the TM 250 and it's your favorite bike and that's what you're ripping, you're gonna love the 450. It feels very similar to that. You have the speed and it's got that same feeling that the 250 has, but it also has decent suspension. It's not that far off, and I would say a great base setting. Thank you all for watching, and I hope this really helped. I love the comments on the 250. It was great that I could help you guys make a better decision. Also, I learned a ton from you guys, so thank you. If you guys have any more suggestions, leave them in the comments. I'll be happy to make any type of video you guys are looking for. But until next time, stay saucy, my nugs.